It is almost 2024. We are not going to let our boundaries get crossed anymore. And we have one of the most powerful tools for protecting our peace in our hands right now, our planners. I think one of the things that causes the most planner overwhelm is when we look at our calendar and we see a bunch of things on our schedule that we don't want to do. And when this happens, we can kind of start to feel icky at actually doing all the things we decided to take on for some reason. Or worse, we start to feel resentful towards the people we're seeing and the projects that we want to do. But planning can be a very useful tool in protecting your boundaries around your time and energy. You just have to know how to use it correctly. In this video, I want to give you some tips for how to use your planner to find your boundaries and how to use your planning process to protect your energy and your peace. So first, let's talk about what boundaries are and how you can find them before we jump right into planning around them. So boundaries are often thought about the things we do in life to protect our time, our energy, and other aspects of our life from the influence of and misuse by other people. But really, we are creating boundaries to be able to show up as our best selves possible for ourselves and for the other people in our lives. When we know how we want to show up in the world, we can set boundaries around that ideal and enforce them, whether it's other people or ourselves who want to cross one of our boundaries. And yes, we do cross our own boundaries all the time. And boundaries relate to planning because we really have to watch out for ourselves crossing our own boundary or letting a boundary be crossed. So planning protects two types of boundaries. It protects our time and it protects our energy. So in terms of time, it can help us identify and protect how much raw time we are spending on a given task or on certain people in our lives. You might do something like a time tracking exercise to help you figure out a little bit more about this. I'll leave my video on time tracking linked up in the cards. It's the first of two, so make sure to watch them both if you're curious how I made this spread. But basically, planning allows us to see how many raw hours we are spending with certain people or on certain projects. And then, of course, we can also navigate around energy. So what kind of energy and effort are we putting into our relationship plans, etc. I think our energy and our time are super linked. So time is a form of energy, but that's not the only way that energy shows up. It might show up in the emotional effort you're putting into something, even if that's only over a short period of time. And these two boundaries, the sort of time boundary and energy boundary, are hard for people to cross without our consent. Let me explain that. I'm not trying to say that you are always consenting or you're always okay with people crossing your boundaries, but I am trying to say that you have the power to change your reality by enforcing your boundaries around time and energy specifically. Meaning if an extra project you took on at work is asking way more of you than you thought, and you are always staying late or you're always doing extra at work, you have the power to renegotiate the terms of that project either with your boss or with your supervisor at work, or maybe you have the power to go to the next week and say, okay, after this project that's going to take a lot out of me, I'm going to have a vacation the next week. I actually have a friend who takes a vacation right after the busiest week of her year. She has an event that she plans every year, and it's always the biggest, most time consuming. She works crazy 80-hour weeks during that time period, and then the week after, she always takes off all 5 days. So you have the power to sort of build in boundaries and breaks and take a whole week off if you want to in your work life, even if you feel like a boundary is being crossed in the amount of work that's being asked of you. Or take another example, if you find yourself being drained by a weekly lunch date of some kind, and maybe it's with your friend and you always find yourself on the other side of conversations where she's just complaining about work the whole time. You have the power to ask to switch subjects. So that's just a blanket statement to say time and energy we can protect with planning, and it's important to recognize those things. And it's also important to recognize the fact that you have the power to change them, because oftentimes these boundaries are being crossed in ways that other people either may not realize or they haven't heard from you in terms of how you'd like to be treated instead. So let's do a quick exercise. Let's look at a calendar and figure out what our boundaries are. So the first way that planning helps you a lot in terms of protecting your boundaries is actually because it can help you find your boundaries. So this is the month of August in my planner, and you can see it was a super busy month, and I had a lot of stuff planned in, and I had a lot of stuff sort of on these sticky notes that I could move around, etc., etc. The reason I want to look at a whole month scale is because this gives you a really good idea of how you're spending most of your time compared to like looking at just like a week in your life. You can totally do this looking at a week in your life as well if you'd rather do that, but looking at a month will give you sort of more opportunities for movement, I guess, and more understanding of how you're spending your time like broadly. So because we have this power to change our reality, a simple place you can start to find your boundaries, if you don't have any idea what they are, is by actually figuring out what in your life on your schedule that you see in your calendar is making you feel helpless. Helplessness is a really powerful tool. We can learn a lot from the places that we feel helpless. So take a look at an average month and think of the regular engagements you have. I'm seeing I have YouTube many times scheduled in here. I have some date nights, a couple of date nights scheduled in here. What are the other regular things that I have? I have therapy. I do laundry every week. These are just regular tasks that I do. And start to pick apart the ones that make you feel either A, overwhelmed, or B, resentful. Overwhelm and resent are the two feelings that result from feeling helpless. We often feel overwhelmed or resentful when we feel like we have no power. But again, we have power. So we're going to talk about that in a second. So firstly, overwhelm. When we have poor boundaries with ourselves, we feel overwhelmed. So look at your calendar and see what makes you feel overwhelmed, basically. I know for me, stuff that makes me feel overwhelmed include doing YouTube every single weekend. So I might have in my overwhelming version of this calendar, I have YouTube every single weekend. I have some sort of filming that I've got to do every single weekend, right? Let's say that's how I have it. Now, I control my YouTube schedule. I have a partner who I do YouTube with. I have a producer, but I have a lot of control over when we do YouTube. So if I was feeling overwhelmed, helpless, stressed out by the YouTube schedule, I've set up this routine where I have to film every single weekend in order to make videos for you guys on time. And I'm feeling overwhelmed because of that. I need to take a realistic look at what I'm actually capable of. And if it's making me feel overwhelmed, if it's making me feel helpless, like a slave to the process, having YouTube filming days every single weekend is actually not serving me. And I need to set a boundary with myself based on what I'm actually capable of. So that means taking these weekly filming sessions and maybe deciding I'm going to batch film. I'm going to do all of that on this second weekend in the month, move my filming sticker down there as well. And that's when I'm going to get all my filming done. So I just have one weekend that I got to batch do it. And then the rest of the weekends I can relax. Or maybe it looks like, okay, I need to build into the week more opportunities for me to prep for filming so that I'm not trying to do prep film every single weekend. And once I have a smaller section of my week devoted to prep, then I get to filming and it all goes smoothly. And the boundary is not letting myself get to the point where filming every single weekend is the only option because I haven't prepared in advance. Making sense so far? Cool. Now, resentment, meanwhile, is the emotion that arises when we have poor boundaries with others. So when you're looking at your calendar, think about the engagements that make you feel upset, mad, or stressed because you always need to do something for someone else. You might look at work and think, my boss always makes me stay late, or maybe you're avoiding texting your sister back to make dinner plans this weekend because she never comes up with her own ideas for where you should eat and you always have to do the planning. You feel helpless because you are expecting these people in your life to know how your time and energy should be treated without ever having enforced or discussed how you want to spend your time and energy with them. So you feel resentful. Or maybe you have discussed these things, maybe you've talked about this with your sister or talked about this with your boss, and they continue to cross that line, even though you're trying to enforce it, at which point you need to take into account these realities and make plans where you can excuse yourself from situations that don't work for you, such as getting another job or telling your sister you're only going to eat dinner with her once a month instead of once every 2 weeks like you planned, or something to that effect. Basically adjusting around your own boundaries. At this point, it might actually be helpful to go into a weekly spread and say, okay, I'm at work 8 to 4:30, but I actually ended up staying late, which made me late for a dinner date that I had with a friend. And what's making me feel resentful of my boss at work is that he keeps making me miss
plans that I have with friends after work. It might be helpful for you to look at the actual hour by hour commitment that these things that are stressing you out is taking up, because sometimes that can help tell us like exactly what is happening. Like in the staying late at work example, it's a simple matter of hours, but maybe in the getting dinner with your sister example, it's not a matter of hours. It actually only takes like a few hours, maybe 2 hours every week or every other week, but the energy you're spending on that 2 hours is so heavy. So anyway, so you can take advantage of different types of planners or different ways you use your planners to see what is taking up your time and to see what you can move around or what conversations you need to have in order to make your life a little bit less stressful and make you feel like you're showing up as your best self. So pay attention to resentment and overwhelm because they are pretty powerful tools. And take a quick moment to reflect on these things and really figure out what they're telling you and why.
Boundaries are a great way to protect your time. You can catch up with friends, get some rest, or maybe even learn new things. Brilliant is one of the most fun, intuitive, and low-pressure ways to learn, and they are kindly sponsoring this video. Brilliant is an online learning platform that uses interactive exercises to teach the basics of math, data science, and computer science. Now, if STEM was not your thing in school, don't worry, I'm with you. I was always more of an English lit girl myself, but that is what is awesome about Brilliant. They use hands-on visual prompts to illustrate these concepts in a beginner-friendly way, and they've got more in-depth material as well if you are an advanced student. For example, in my day job, I work with websites, which means I do know a basic set of HTML and CSS, but not a ton, and it would be really nice to know a little bit more code than I do. I told Brilliant that I was new to coding, but not a complete beginner, and it matched me with a course appropriate to my skill level. It's not just for professionals either. I checked out the How Technology Works course and learned a little bit about password safety and cybersecurity to level up that area of my life as well. Interactive learning has been proven to be 6 times more effective. 6 times more effective than watching a lecture or a video. And Brilliant offers bite-sized, hands-on exercises that will teach you to think in whole new ways. You can work through the material at your own pace, and new lessons are added every single month. So, to try Brilliant free for 30 days, visit brilliant.org/RachelInTheory or click on the link in my description box below. The first 200 to click will get 20% off of Brilliant's annual premium subscription. All right, let's get back to the video.
So we've taken a look at our schedule. We've figured out what elements, what repeating and recurring elements are making us upset, taking up too much time or too much energy for ourselves. Now let's explore how to use planning to protect our boundaries and give us peace. There are 2 major techniques that I use when I'm trying to enforce my boundaries or protect my peace. First, on a day-to-day level, if someone is asking me to set plans with them, no matter who it is, it can be someone I like, I don't like, a friend, a colleague, whatever. I say, let me check my calendar and get back to you. This works immediately because you remove yourself from any pressure to say yes or to respond right away. I think when we're in the moment with friends or family, especially people we love and care about and do want to see and do want to hang out with, or do want to work on bigger projects with, we feel the pressure to say yes immediately. Sometimes the things we're being asked to do sound really fun, or it sounds like a good growth opportunity, or we know that it'll make us happy in the long run, whatever. But so much of the time, we are actually responding in a snap decision sort of way without having really thought much about our energy or our time boundaries because we don't want to make a person who's in front of us who's asking us to do something upset. It sounds really silly, but if you don't have good practice enforcing your boundaries, you can often end up in situations where you say yes to a bunch of things and then your schedule is so overcommitted and so full, you just don't even have any space in your life or place for a personal engagement or to get your sort of self-care on and get yourself back. This is when I often find myself resenting people, is when I say yes to so many things because I know it'll make other people happy and I'm not actually honoring the sort of personal time I've set out for myself. I know if I have, like this week, take this week, I had the Taylor Swift Eras tour and then I had scheduled in personal time and then I had a movie night with a friend and then I had a meeting with a mastermind group that I'm a part of. If I had rescheduled this personal time and fit like, say, a date night in there instead, I would be screaming, crying, throwing up on Monday. Like I I would not be able to deal because I'd had something 4 days in a row and had no personal time. So if somebody's asking me, hey, do you want to hang out on Friday? Do you want to go on a date on Friday or whatever? I would say, let me get back to you. Let me check my calendar. I'd come into my calendar and I would see that I have personal time scheduled there. And I would say, okay, maybe I want to do this date. Maybe I don't want to do this date. Either way, I have a personal time block scheduled and I can see my other tasks, my other engagements in line here. And I know that I will go personally crazy if I do not build in some personal time for myself on this day. So I cannot go on that date. This really, really helps if you kind of forget about your plans when you're in the moment in that way. So remove the pressure from answering in real time. Make sure you're looking at the plans you have already set up and managing your energy levels before you respond to somebody just because you want to make them happy. And it's completely okay in every single circumstance to say, let me check my calendar and get back to you. It's so okay. Even if you know right away that the answer is actually no, and you don't want to go on this date or hang out with this person or whatever, it's still okay to say, let me take some personal time, let me check my calendar, and I will get back to you, because you can formulate in that way, you can formulate a response. So it's almost like, on the one hand, you're using your calendar to remind yourself of the things you have set up and make sure you're getting enough personal time for yourself, but also you're using your calendar as like an excuse and a backstop to say, hey, let me check my calendar, and then you can formulate a response, come back later and say, actually, I don't think I want to make time for this. Thank you for the opportunity, but we're done here. Second, on a larger, longer timeline and scale, you can use your planning process to affirmatively plan in your goals, desires, and vision for yourself during an upcoming time period. A real easy way to do this is with yearly or quarterly planning. So you're taking a large chunk of time. In this case, I have a spread from 2019, which were my goals for Q4, so October, November, December of 2019. And I used this page in my bullet journal spread to plan out what I wanted to be feeling and doing in terms of health, education, and creativity, spirit, and my self-care, and then social and like outings and with people and things like that. These were the major areas of my life that I was focusing on for Q4 of 2019. And I even created a vision board to help me visualize it as well in this process. So I set up a pretty solid plan here. And what this enables you to do is to set out how you want to spend your time and how you want to feel and be energetically in the world. You have an opportunity to create a vision, whether that's a literal vision board or it's just in text like I have done here. And I think we're familiar with like vision boards like this. We think of them on Pinterest or in Canva or whatever platform is your platform of choice. We think of creating images that speak to us and speak to what we want to show up as in the world. But really what you're doing there is you're putting a vision in front of yourself and saying like, this is how I want to be, to the exclusion of other things. It is a boundary creating activity inherently to plan for the year, to create a vision board, to create goals. Because when you're saying, I want to put my energy towards this, you are also saying, I do not want to put my energy towards that. 2024 is right around the corner. So think about what kind of person you want to be in 2024. What do you want to be doing? How do you want to feel? And then you make your list of things that you want, your goals that you want. But also on top of that, make a separate list of things that would compromise this vision. So you have the vision, you have the goals, you know what you want to be doing and looking like and feeling like and how you want to be speaking, acting, whatever in 2024. And then you also have a list of what you don't want to be doing or the things that would be compromising your goals and vision. And this is where you find your boundaries in between these two things. So if I'm taking my goals for 2019, my 2019, end of 2019 goals for myself as an example, what I want to do is I want to look at this and I want to say, okay, to be healthy, I want to eat healthy and I'm going to meal prep every Sunday at 2 p.m. is what I have written here. So I can come over here to this list and say like, how do I want to enforce this, right? So if we're doing healthy eating and then the goal is meal prep Sundays, 2 p.m., right? How this could be compromised or how I could fail at this goal would be if I planned social engagements Sunday afternoons, right? So I cannot do this. My boundary now to achieve my goals is to not plan social engagements on Sunday afternoons. So somebody might come to me and say, Rachel, we really want you to be at this party or we really want you to do this fun thing on Sunday afternoon. I would look at my calendar and I would say, okay, I have meal prep on Sunday at 2 p.m. This is going to help me achieve my goals, achieve my health, my dream health. I actually cannot go to that thing because I am doing something that time already. You don't have to like tell people, you know, oh, I can't go to that social engagement because I'm meal prepping and this is a really important time that I'm meal prepping. something or whatever. You don't have to explain your boundaries to anyone, but you can generally say, actually, I'm not available on Sundays afternoons. Can we do that another time? Or is there a different engagement or thing that we can go to together? Something like that. You can control how you are showing up in the world with the use of these boundaries, and you can protect the vision you have set out for yourself with the use of boundaries like this. So make sure in your yearly planning or your quarterly planning or whatever you're doing, you are making a list of things that will compromise your goals and your visions, and figuring out how you're going to work around those situations when they come up, so that if somebody offers you to hang out at a time you're not available because you're otherwise meal prepping or working out or reading or doing whatever you have set out to do at that time, you can respond in a way that is effective, protects your boundaries and your goals, and also maintains those relationships. And don't forget to check yourself regularly too to make sure you're on track. Be realistic in your review process about what got in the way of your goals, and see how you can set boundaries to protect yourself in the future.
And if you notice yourself slipping on your boundaries, remember, you are human. It is okay. You will make mistakes. Every time you start to feel overwhelm or resentment, take a look back at your year-long plan or your vision for yourself and what is coming up for you in the moment. Remind yourself of the life you want to live, and you can live it. In addition to using planning to protect your boundaries, your energy, your space, your time, planning can also be a really good self-care activity. I have a video on the screen right here all about that if you want to learn more. Thank you guys so much for watching, for being subscribed, for being awesome. I love you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.